Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 87.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great interview with Felecia Hatcher. She is the author of The C Student Guide to Scholarships. She's also a CEO and very active in her community as far as volunteer work and other great service organizations. And she's helping with a coding academy. She's got a lot going on. We're going to learn her story. And she was one of those students out there that did not put up the greatest grades, did not have the greatest test scores, yet she was able to go out there and do great things through a lot of perseverance and hard work. She was also an entrepreneur, launched a few businesses, so she has a great story. So if your student happens to be one of those students that isn't doing that well in high school, where maybe high school isn't their thing, this is an opportunity to learn a little bit about alternate paths and how Felecia was able to certainly do great things, even though she didn't have the stellar grades. A lot of people think, the successful people are going to have great grades and go to great colleges and then do great things. And that's true. Some people do take that path. But there's a lot of great paths to successful careers and a happy life that don't include having great scores in your high school or great test scores. And there's other roads to pursue that can get you where you need to go. As always, show notes for this are available at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/87 if you want to learn more or get contact information. So if you're driving or exercising, you can skip trying to write things down, and we will have it available to you at the website. Again, tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the interview with Felecia. All right, today I'm sitting down with Felecia Hatcher. She's the author of the C Student Guide to Scholarships. Welcome, Felecia.
Thank you, Brad, so much for having me on your show.
It's great to have you here. So you wrote a book, obviously, about the C Student Guide to Scholarships. I'm assuming that's a little bit autobiographical.
Yes, definitely. It definitely is. That was my story as a kid. So the book is The C Student's Guide to Scholarships, a creative guide to finding scholarships when your grades suck and your parents are broke, because that was definitely me in high school. All
right. Well, great. Well, let's talk a little bit about your story, and we'll get into the book a little bit as well. But for those people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about what you do and why you do it and how you came to do it.
Sure. So my scholarship story is it's kind of the average story for a lot of students, but it just doesn't really get talked about. So I think so often the focus is on, the stellar students, the A students, the B students. No one really, people kind of give up on the C student. And that was my story. So I definitely wasn't a dumb kid, didn't come from a bad background, and just the normal, traditional kind of educational setting didn't sit well with me so much. So I kind of skirted by because I realized I kind of could. And but I was one of those kids who, my GPA sucked in relation to math, but I could wire cable into my room, and I taught myself how to code. And it was kind of that creativity and tapping into that and realizing that there was more than one path to success. Also realizing that what kind of the educational system was telling you that if you didn't have the best grades that you couldn't go to college and you couldn't win scholarships wasn't true. And that's what I learned at 17 years old when my guidance counselor told me I would never make it to a college or a university because of my grades. And she really only knew me with my GPA that she saw on the computer. She didn't know that I had played sports all 4 years in multiple sports. She didn't know that I was the president of multiple organizations on my campus, or that I had, almost 1,000 hours in community service. I didn't know these things would make me highly marketable for scholarships and scholarship committees. And once I realized that, that's when I really sat on doing the work and proving this person wrong who was trying to define my life at 17 years old. And hence the story of the book. So I ended up winning $120,000 in scholarships and grants. My GPA never touched a 3.0 while I was in high school, but I was able to just kind of craft a process to help me win a ton of money in scholarships and go on to college and then go on to have a successful career in tech and marketing.
Okay. So what do you think set you apart? Obviously, it wasn't your grades. So what do you think the scholarship committees did see in you?
Yeah, so I realized that I had to take the attention away from my grades and show them that they can still get a big bang for their buck and still get a huge ROI, right? So a return on their investment. Their scholarship was an investment into me. And because I was such an active student on campus in the community, they knew that if they took this chance instead of picking the A student, then that I had a commitment to the community that would help them pay off tenfold later down the road. And I've been able to do that and definitely make them proud on a number of levels. But I think that was key. Like I said before, I wasn't that great in math, although, I could rewire cable and I taught myself how to code in high school. But I was an excellent writer and I love to write. And I realized that I can almost write my way to success. And that's what I did. So I tell all students, whether you're a C student or you're an A student, whether you have a 2.0 or a 5.0, that you can get creative with your limited resources. You can get creative with your approach and you can get the scholarship committees excited about what you're doing if you don't focus on what you lack and really focus on showing them what you excel in and what your talents are.
Okay. So in this process, you said you were 17 when you discovered this or started working on this. So would that put you as a junior or a senior in high school?
A junior, going into my senior year. So, I got the big wake up call a few days into my senior year, sitting down with my guidance counselor and telling her my hopes and dreams of, at the time, I wanted to go to the University of Central Florida and major in TV production. And I'm like, please just guide me down my yellow brick road to success. And Brad, she looked at me, she looked at the computer screen, she looked back at me and she was just like, you're never going to make it to a college or university. And so that's really harsh. And words to say to a 17-year-old and kind of defining what the rest of their life is going to look like. But it was also a big wake up call to me, like, Felecia, you can't continue to skirt down this path. You really have to take matters into your own hand. One, yes, prove her wrong, but then also prove yourself right, that you deserve this opportunity and that you can turn things around. And that's why I kind of set on that path of really still not understanding the full scholarship process, but going, my high school had something called Scholarship Wednesdays, and it sounds much fancier than it really is. And they would just literally put out all the scholarship applications that were available that week. And during lunchtime, and seniors would just go there, look around and pick up whatever they needed. I was running out of time that first day I went there, and I literally just picked up every application and went home. But prior to picking up every application, I walked around the table and I was like, I don't qualify for any of this stuff. And I almost walked out. And it was a career counselor that was there that said, Felecia, just kind of look around the table with a different set of eyes. I'm sure there's something there for you. I picked up everything, went home. And when I actually sat down and looked through every single one of the applications, I started to see that there were some things in there that were for me. Maybe it was joining a certain club in order to qualify for a scholarship. So I didn't qualify right there, then and there while I was sitting there, but it was something that I could qualify for before the deadline, or it's getting a few more community service hours or writing an essay about bees. And I think that's the most important thing that parents especially have to realize about the process is there's more than one way. There's more than one way to qualify as well. And it's really just kind of taking in everything and setting aside the time to dig deep in with you and your child into realizing what the opportunities are for them in playing the scholarship game.
Right. So describe how many applications and how much work did you put in once the light bulb turned on?
Yeah, I dedicated my whole senior year to applying to scholarships. So I definitely applied to over 200 scholarships in my senior year alone. I didn't do anything, the years prior to that. And I quit, I was varsity of basketball for 4 years. I had to quit the basketball team because I'm like, I'm never gonna make it to the WNBA or get a scholarship. But I realized how important this is because, my parents told my brother and I, you're either going to college or you're going to the military. And I did not want to go to the military. And I knew my parents couldn't afford to send me to college, especially a college that I would want to go to. And so I knew that I had to like kick things into overdrive in order to make this happen. But I literally, as soon as I was getting out of class until like the wee hours of the night, I was working on scholarship applications. And through that process, I realized something else, that college applications and scholarship applications are usually asking for the same type of essay. Or you can kind of craft one essay together and kind of cut and paste that into what you need in order to be able to send out scholarship applications much faster. And that became, for me, a reason I was able to just kind of churn them out week after week without having to put in a lot of work of creating things over and over and over again. You definitely want to put a system together.
Right. Okay. So you put a system together. You applied to 200 scholarships or so. Do you remember how many you actually won?
Yeah. So I won 5 scholarships in total. So one scholarship, Communities and Schools, was the big boy. That was $100,000 scholarship. Then I also won a lot of smaller local scholarships, but all my scholarships were local. And that's always my best advice to parents and students is dig deep and dive into the local process of looking and applying for scholarships. The national ones are great and they're amazing and they're usually bigger buckets of money, but you also have the eyeballs of every high school senior applying for that scholarship and looking at that scholarship and kind of hoping and praying. I like local scholarships for few reasons, right? The pool of people that are applying for it is usually much smaller. The likelihood that someone on that scholarship committee knows of you, knows of your story, knows your parents is highly likely on that committee. Not saying that they're going to go in your favor, but they could easily resonate with your story because it's usually a local story. There are community ties that are probably going to be a part of the application and the essay that you're putting together. Those things resonate really well with scholarship committee judges. I know that because I have been one on a number of occasions. And then again, I can't stress enough just the smaller pool that you are going to be competing against when you are applying to those local scholarships, and those can easily stack up as they did for me, and getting that other $20,000 and to total $120,000 in scholarships and grants.
Okay, so ultimately, where did you go to college then?
Yeah, I attended Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida. Okay. And then after that, I worked for some really cool companies. So I worked for Nintendo and Sony. I finally made it to the NBA. I worked for the Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Lynx as their front office marketing manager, and launched technology products in the education space for Nintendo and Sony as well. So really awesome career. If you look back and tell me that was going to happen to me at 17 years old, sitting in my guidance counselor's office, I'd tell you were crazy. Went on to be an entrepreneur. Ran a gourmet popsicle manufacturing company, was honored at the White House as one of the top 100 entrepreneurs under the age of 30 in 2011. 3 years later, for the nonprofit that my husband and I started, Code Fever, I was honored at the White House again as a champion of change for STEM access and diversity, and featured on the Today Show and the Cooking Channel and MSNBC. And it's just been fantastic experience for me. But it goes back to those lessons that I learned in high school and applying for scholarships, that again, there's more than one road to success, and that you can determine what you want if you kind of get very creative with limited resources, get scrappy, use the internet, use people that are around you, kind of build your tribe. Same thing that you're doing when you're getting your recommendation letters. And those are the kind of the keys to success and the foundation that you build going through this process of applying for scholarships and getting into college.
Right. Now, I'll have a lot of parents that are listening, and some parents would say, man, if my kid was that, aggressive's not the right word, but that entrepreneurial, that willing to work hard, that go for it attitude, life would be so easy. But my student isn't that way. Mm-hmm. Do you think scholarships is a good path for everyone, or how would you decide whether or not, some parents are going to have to push potentially? Do you think they should push, or is that a waste of time?
Yeah, so I definitely, some people disagree with me, but I definitely think parents should be a part of the process and really push their child to getting as much scholarship funding. Like, why leave it on the table? their senior year is the best and really kind of the only time where so much money is thrown at them from a scholarship standpoint. Once they get into college, two things happen, Brad, right? It's either a ton of students that are now college freshmen are like, oh my gosh, I really do have to pay to go to school. And they smarten up and they're bombarding the financial aid office and they're looking for scholarships and they're looking for fellowships and they're looking for any and anything to help them kind of cut the cost of their college tuition. And then organizations and institutions that are applying the scholarships don't give out as much money or opportunities when you get into college as opposed to when you're a high school senior. So those two things happen. My whole thing of why I think parents should really be a part of the scholarship process. And I understand parents are working crazy and they're managing so many different things. But if you are not a part of the scholarship process and your child has all the qualifications to win scholarships with a little bit of work and a little bit of time carved out every single week, then you still are a part of the process on the back end of that. When you're having to take out loans and Parent Plus loans and you're having to refinance your homes, like I've seen this, and you're having to budget and struggle in order to pay for your child to go to college in ways that are not smart and kind of beneficial to the family, then the whole family struggles. So I think the whole family should be a part of the process on the front end, so the whole family isn't negatively affected financially on the back end.
Right, and that's some advice that I always give to parents. I say, essentially, if your idea of pursuing scholarships is every Saturday morning when you see your student come down from breakfast, you say, hey, how are those scholarships coming? It's probably not going to work. Now, perhaps in your situation it did, but you sound like the rare individual that kind of took the bull by the horns, got after it, and did what you needed to do. But there's a whole lot of students out there that are going to need some guidance.
Right. And, my mom's a college professor, right? And she's like, oh, I wish I would have helped you more, but you didn't need the help. But it was a combination of all those things. But, the best thing that my mom could have said to me is like, you have two choices. And you're either going to college or going to the military, and you have to decide. And that was what she needed to, like, what she said to me. That was like, oh my gosh, I have to figure this out. And I think the work that you do, Brad, and the work that I've done and with the book is so important to show parents like, hey, this is how you have that conversation. This is how you set up a system to make sure that you are getting the money that is being left on the table, because there's a ton of money that's being left on the table, or opportunities that your child qualifies for tenfold, that it's a simple application a lot of the time. When I went through this process, I'm 33 now, so I went through, I graduated high school 15 years ago. It was much harder to get this funding. Now it's much easier, right? Most of the process is online. Instead of having kind of fill out paper applications and hope that the right person receives it in the mail and kind of go through that process. Now it's online and it's much easier, it's much faster, it's a much more streamlined process. But then you're also able to apply for much more scholarships than ever before. And then all the social media and the business tools, I'm sorry, not the business tools, but the tech tools that are available to you in order to get these things out. It's a beautiful time to apply for scholarships. It just is.
Right. Okay. So now looking back, can you give us any nuggets, or, if you were to to do it all over again, what would you have done differently?
Man, I definitely would have started earlier.
Okay. When do you think people should start?
So I think freshman year is when they should start, and not necessarily filling out applications, but positioning yourself for success so that you have everything in line to be marketable to scholarship committees by the time your junior and senior year hits. Like, I literally had to put a ton of things in overdrive in order to qualify for a lot of things because I waited until my senior year. So, what clubs your child should be a part of, their extracurricular activities. What are they doing over the summertime? Like, who are they meeting? Going on LinkedIn and meeting people in the community of influence, joining those organizations. Those are the things that they really should be doing their freshman year, their sophomore year, their junior year, leading into their senior year, so that they have the most marketable kind of student resume put together to be able to qualify for a plethora of scholarships.
Let me interject something, because I think you're hitting a really great point, and I'd love for you to give me an example, and I'll try and get something that maybe you know something about. But Let's talk about my son, Zach. 7th grade, soon to be 8th grade. So he's kind of, moving into that high school. So if I'm thinking I'd like to get him ready to go, one of the things that he's very interested in is computers. So he's doing some very basic coding, obviously, in grade school, and he's involved in a little bit in this and that and a little bit of basketball. So let's assume that maybe computers and coding and whatever is maybe his path to his interest. So how would we use that as a quote unquote scholarship preparation? What types of things would he get involved in?
Yeah, so there's organizations like SECME, SECME, right, which is a STEM organization that does competitions all over the United States. Every year, they offer full ride scholarships to students that are doing things in the STEM fields, right? And that's an organization that starts in middle school and goes through high school, right, and until their senior year. And so having them join an organization like that and be very active in that organization, having proof of what they've built throughout the years as a part of that organization really goes a long way for setting them up so that they win that full ride scholarship if they stay a part of that program, through the end of their senior year. Like those are the things that parents can start doing, right? Having your child be a part of Code Academy and getting those badges that show their expertise in those areas is also something that looks really impressive when you're filling out your scholarship application to say, hey, if I'm telling you that I want to pursue a computer engineering degree and I deserve this scholarship because I'm going into a field that has this need and this is a scholarship organization committed to STEM, then me being able to show that I've been doing this since 6th grade and here are the badges that actually show that I've been able to do that work, that's very impressive. And I think that's the other thing that I think people don't really realize is you can also take your talents off of the paper application and do things to physically show people how excited you are about this opportunity and this career path, and this is why you deserve the scholarship. I'll give you one example that's kind of off track, but I was a part of a scholarship committee that was giving full ride scholarships to the college of your choice for students that resided in Delray Beach, Florida. One of the students that applied came into the scholarship committee when we were judging in their final round, and he wanted to pursue a career in music. And he came and he played his guitar. And everyone put down their pens and papers and was fixated. So you had 12 judges completely fixated on this kid. And no matter what he said in his paper application, us being able to see the passion in his eyes of him playing the guitar right in front of us, and of course it sounded good because that's important as well, really sealed the deal for him for winning a full ride scholarship to the college that he wanted to go to pursue music, because we've been able to see it. And so now again, when I talk about the tools that are available to us, a video that's showing what you're doing, that's showing, your son building something or building an app or doing something in robotics and attaching that to your resume in the section where they say to add more things. Those things are extremely, extremely powerful now, where they weren't so, 5-10 years ago, but people were visual people. We're moving in that direction. And those are the things that people really want to see, is people going the extra mile to really show their talents, because that goes again back to the ROI of this person is committed. The student knows what they want to do. They're passionate about it, and they're going to do anything possible in order to make sure that they're successful.
Great. So yeah, that's a great example, and I really appreciate it, because I think that's where a lot of people, they kind of talk about scholarships, they hear about scholarships, but they have a hard time coming up with what to do. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, a challenge for many. So
yeah, it's being authentic. It's like the best business advice works exactly for the scholarship process as well, right? So authenticity brings people in, right? They have a level playing field where they can resonate with you. They can see that passion. They are excited, but you're telling the truth. And like, to go back to my story, I did not hide the fact that I was a C student. I let them know, like, hey, I had a few obstacles in the road. I didn't really take my education too serious, but I've done everything since then to prove to you that I'm on this path of taking my education very serious. And that resonated with them, that made them feel comfortable enough to open up their checkbooks and write a check for $100,000. It wasn't the SAP story, but it was me being my authentic self. So again, going back to the essay process, because I think that's the part where a lot of students and parents struggle, because it's a lot of work. It's being authentic, being interesting, and being excited, but then telling the truth and telling them where you plan to go and the strategy of how you plan to do those things and the talents that you have in order to get you there. Those are the foundations for a really good essay and a really good package that you bring to scholarship judges.
Right. Absolutely. So let's say I'm the parent now of the high school junior or senior, and the student we're talking about is relatively average. And when I say average, I'm saying, they're the, top 25% of their class, but that's about it. And they're active in a sport or two, but they don't play that much. They're kind of second string, and they're active in a club or two. And in their free time, they play Xbox and, and hang with friends. I've had a lot of frustrated parents say, well, I can't find the scholarships for this kid. What would your response to that?
So again, there's literally a scholarship for everything, right? The crazy, the wacky, the run of the mill, but then also for those average students, I was definitely one of them. And what you have to pull out of the process and what you have to kind of pull out of your child is, what are the things that they excel at? He likes to play music, you said, right? And is pretty decent at sports. Most of the sports that I played in, I was pretty decent in. I wasn't like amazing, but I was pretty decent. But there were stories that I could tell that resonated with those scholarships, right? So a scholarship geared towards your leadership abilities. Well, if you're playing music, if you're part of sports and intramural sports or after school sports, then there are always leadership stories that you can pull out of those in order to apply for those scholarships. I think too often we get discouraged when we look at applications and it's one straight road, right? And we don't think that we can get creative with the story that we're telling in order to qualify and apply for those scholarships. A leadership scholarship, again, can mean so many different things. And you can pull so many different leadership stories from your child, whether it's their extracurricular activity, whether it's what they're doing in school, maybe it's what they're doing in church, maybe it's what, just them being the first child in your family and the things that they exhibit as a leader in your home. Like, you have to get creative if you have limited resources and you feel like your child's not that stellar child, so you can't tell that amazing story of how they've excelled academically, but they're still doing some things that are uniquely them, that are a great story to tell as they want to go and pursue college, and they need the money to be able to do so. But kind of, again, going back to, there's a few scholarship application essay types that you kind of see across the board, right? Or things kind of derive from that. It's always, why do you deserve this scholarship? Which could mean so many different things. How have you displayed like leadership abilities, community service focused scholarship application, essays. Why do you want to go to this college, or why do you want to pursue this? Who has influenced you most in your life? Those are stories that no matter what your GPA is, no matter how active you are, inactive you are, those are always stories that you can tell just going through the process of being a high school student in a number of capacities.
Right. Absolutely. So I really appreciate all this great information that you've provided. I appreciate your story and kind of the insights into scholarships. Let's fast forward to what you're doing today. So obviously it sounds like you've had a very busy and active career in the last 15 years already. But if people want to learn more about what you're doing or want to get in contact, what kind of things are you offering out there to the public, and how can they get a hold of you and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is FeleciaHatcher.com. I do a lot of work right now around entrepreneurship and getting students and young people engaged in the innovation economy, kind of getting off from just being consumers of technology and actually creating and innovating in the technology space. And that kind of goes across the board. So all the work that I've ever done has just been around kind of showing people how to get creative with their limited resources. So anywhere from being a C student and being able to tackle and win the scholarship game to my new book that launches on June 14th is How to Start a Business on a Ramen Noodle Budget. And that's for young people in college to kind of, again, channel that creativity of turning a 59-cent meal into a gourmet meal by adding a few things. And if you can get creative in that space, you can channel that same energy into launching your own business while you're in college. So that's around all the work that I do. And FeleciaHatcher.com or our nonprofit CodeFeverMiami.com are where you can find me online.
I guess we need to explore a little bit. This innovation economy, what does that mean? And expound on that a little for us.
Yeah, so I mean, that's essentially where we are and kind of where we're going, right? So as technology starts to consume us in a number of ways, it also provides a ton of opportunities. So you know, startups is kind of thrown around a lot. They're launching every single day, and people are looking to build technology solutions to solve essentially world problems. And there are opportunities for our young people, especially as they graduate high school and go into college, to kind of create their own jobs, because they kind of have to, if the economy kind of stays where it is. And so that's the work that I do. So we teach them a full stack development, computer programming training, and then we marry that with the information and the skills and the resources to launch their own startups. So access to mentorship, access to VC funding and venture capitalist funding, knowing how to kind of navigate that landscape so that their ideas can get funded and they can start putting out the things that they want to see in the world from a technology standpoint. But that's the economy that we're in right now. So I think too often people talk about we're in a knowledge economy, and I say that's nothing to brag about. We need to be in an applied knowledge economy. And an applied knowledge economy means that your child, the skills that they learn and the education that they have, they can apply that to any situation that they walk into and actually know what they're doing, but most importantly, add value into any situation that they walk into. And so once they can add value with the knowledge that they have, then they have the luxury of being able to innovate and really bring value to our community in the form of startups that they're launching that solve problems.
Right. So let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think when you say startup, everybody thinks of, well, in my dorm room, I'm going to launch the next Facebook. Which of course is, great if that's what you want to do, and you can, and
right.
You do, wonderful. But can you give some examples that maybe aren't so grandiose of people you've worked with, or, some ideas as what that really means?
Yeah, I mean, it can mean so many different things. So I definitely think that, the competition to Facebook and the competition to Squarespace, not Squarespace, but Snapchat and all these will more than likely happen again in the dorm room of a college, right? With some college buddies coming together, having the free time in order to be able to do those things and taking advantage of the resources that are on their campus. I think starting a business while you're in college is the best time to start a business, because you don't have nearly the responsibility that you do once you graduate college. And so when you talk about a startup as opposed to a small business, a startup is a business model that is repeatable and scalable and can happen in a short period of time, where small businesses are usually kind of like a legacy business, right? There's slower growth. Most of them have a smaller, scalable business model as opposed to a startup that's trying to do something and turn it in the next few years. So I think for college students and high school students, there's so many things that you can do. I started my first business when I was 19, and it was an educational consulting company. I think, if you want to talk about some companies that are not so high tech that started on a college campus, Insomnia Cookies is a brilliant company that I absolutely love that was started on a college campus in the Northeast. And it was a kid that loved warm cookies, and his friends love warm cookies, and he literally started baking them in his dorm room and delivering them with his bike around his college campus. And word caught on, and he started doing that in all the college campuses that were around him. I think he started at Temple. And now that's a company that is literally based, in almost in every college campus, major college campus around the Northeast. And that is a tech company, because now you can order through the app and things like that. But that's something that literally any college student can start. So it's again looking at the problem and like, how can I solve this problem with technology and be able to kind of be the Uber of things, so to speak, right? So how can I use the things and the people that are around me to provide a solution or build a platform that connects these people and connects a solution to solving a problem.
Right, absolutely. So I think the point there is you may be wanting to solve a world problem like Facebook. How do we all get connected? But it could be a local issue of, something going on your campus or something going on in your community that just needs to be solved.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many things. I've seen it with, I think the ultimate ride sharing has always been on a college campus, right? One buddy has a car and everyone kind of piles in it because everyone else doesn't have a car. And that's ride sharing. And that's kind of Uber before Uber, right? So college students are very innovative because they have to, because most of the time they don't really have, a lot of money or a lot of resources on the campus. I've seen students start, mobile hair salon businesses, and I've seen students start, so many different things, kind of looking around their campus, seeing what the campus lacks, and being able to provide that for students that don't necessarily have a plethora of resources available to them because they're kind of stuck on their campus.
Absolutely. So great. Well, I appreciate the additional thoughts there. And hopefully people will track you down and get involved in how they can help you as well. So I appreciate your great information, and we'll stay in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brad. Have a good one.
You too. All right. That was a great, inspiring story with Felecia. I hope you enjoyed it. Before we go, I want to tell you about our scholarship guide. We have the scholarship guide for busy parents. It's available on our website, tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/scholarships. So if you're now inspired to get in the scholarship game, I encourage you to go to this resource. We will email you 4 short videos. They're each about 10 minutes long. That'll get you a jump start as far as how the scholarship game is played and understand where to find scholarships and just kind of get into the basics. From there, you can get on more websites and learn more and really get into the scholarships if that's something you want to pursue. But I think, again, it's a great resource for parents to get up to speed, because if your idea of winning scholarships is, pushing your student every once in a while and just saying, hey, you're in charge of scholarships, go do it, most students are not going to do it. And it's not that they are going to intentionally not do it. They're not going to say, well, there's no way I'm doing that. What's going to happen for many families is the student's busy. They've got their junior and senior year classes, which are often pretty tough. They're preparing for the SAT or ACT. They're trying to visit and choose colleges and career paths, and they've got a lot going on. Plus, they want to enjoy prom and social activities at school. And for many families, students just get too busy, and by the time they realize that scholarships should have been done, it's too late. They look back and say, I missed deadlines. I didn't know what to do at the right time. Now it's too late. So again, if you're a parent of a freshman, sophomore, junior, it's time to get in the scholarship game now, not wait. If you happen to be the parent of a senior and you're a little bit late to the game, that's fine. But go and do it now. Again, tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/scholarships. There's a short video. You sign up with your email, and we'll email you a few more videos and other resources and get you started on the scholarships. All right, that's all we have for today. I look forward to chatting with you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns 2 companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.